when the president comes out and says it needs to be a fair, good deal, otherwise we won't get there, but that he's the most optimistic or more optimistic that we do get there, your thought is what?
Well, schizophrenic is a great word. I hate to say this, but I think at this point in time, having gone through this back and forth on the on-again, off-again trade deal, the president and his advisors have really lost their credibility in assessing the state of play of this trade conflict. I mean, just today is a case in point where the president is congratulating himself for receiving a call from somebody he calls the vice chairman of China, when we know he's the vice premier, so he doesn't even understand who the discussant is at the other end of the phone. And then, the Chinese have come back, and as well as his favorite network, Fox News, and said, look, there's no breakthrough in this particular phone call. The Chinese have not changed their view. Of course they would like a deal. Of course President Trump would like a deal. But to convey the impression that we're closer today than we were Friday, when the president called Xi Jinping an enemy of the American people, when he threatened American businesses with having any relationships with China, when he said he'd increase tariffs on everything China sold us, and threw out all sorts of anger-driven responses to China's retaliation to his latest tariff initiative, just sort of indicates, again, that the president has almost become unhinged in dealing with China on a day-to-day basis.
Stephen, we talk a lot about what the potential tariff impact could mean to U.S. consumers and U.S. business as well, but you see these widespread higher price tariffs take effect, then how's that going to impact the Chinese economy? Because we do know, right, that so much of the strategic initiatives that China has launched in the last couple of years, the investments it's made, the fact that it's cultivated this middle class does hinge on the export part of the economy. What happens with those tariffs to China?
Well, first of all, I mean, the U.S. Needs Chinese demand for its product. China is our third largest and most rapidly growing export market. So the idea that we're not hurt by China's retaliation on our tariffs is just factually incorrect. China gets hurt also by the tariffs that we impose on them. Their economy is slowed. There's further downside risk to China right now, but the Chinese economy is still growing around 6% at this point in time, which is triple the rate of growth in our economy. But obviously, if the U.S. administration ratchets up tariffs, there'll be further negative impacts on the Chinese economy as well.
Yeah, and I guess that sort of gets to the question that I've been mulling over the last couple of days is when you look at the currency moves, when you look at the trade dynamics, when you look at the economic growth that has been weakening out of China, and certainly there have been questions about how, I guess, credible that data has been over the years as well. When you look at these protests in Hong Kong, what happens to the world if China actually does begin to contract or that growth decelerates much more dramatically than we're even seeing now?
Well, China's been the largest engine of global growth over the last 10 years. By IMF metrics, China's accounted for about a third of the cumulative global growth since the end of the financial crisis. So if you take that away and just eliminate that from the global growth calculus, the world economy would be on the cusp of recession right now. So Chinese resilience has made a huge difference for an anemic post-crisis recovery. I think China has a lot of policy space. I would caution you from thinking that there's going to be an implosion of Chinese economic growth. They have ample opportunity to adjust fiscal policy, infrastructure spending, monetary policy. They just made a modest adjustment last week with their new lending rate reform policy. So there's options that they have that you can't rule out them using.